Okay, well, so this is our second session in our New Life series. In previous years, we would open with a meditation, being accomplished yogis, as we all are. Would you guys like to do that again this year? Would you have minutes? Sure.
Yeah.
The system that we used in the past was based on the discourses, and we would alternate between three of them. I'm quite amenable to revisions or updatings, but I don't have any particular expertise in this. But we alternated between this meditation, this personal meditation, and then an impersonal meditation, and then an integration of the two. So these were they. Here's the first one. Dwelling on the qualities of the master often facilitates concentration on the form of the master. In this form of meditation, the aspirant is aware of the spiritual perfection of the master and spontaneously fixes his attention upon the form of the master without analyzing his spiritual perfection into any of its component qualities. However, though these qualities are not separately revived in the mind, all that the aspirant may have understood of them through the preparatory meditation concerned with the realized qualities of the master, that was the meditation before this one, constitute the implicit background of such one-pointed concentration and contributes towards its efficacy and value. This form of meditation involves the complete identification of the master with the spiritual ideal. So we've always put up a photograph of a concentrated element. Of course, if we were to do this in the New Life, we'd be kicked out immediately, since we couldn't take Baba as the master in those days. But maybe our New Life session begins right after this meditation is done. And then the next one is this. Let's see. Yeah, is it this? We start up there? Yeah, okay. Does someone else want to read this out so we have other voices than just mine? Anyone feel like this? Take the microphone.
The type of meditation concerned with the numerous forms of manifested life and the type of meditation concerned with one's own bodies are both preparations for this form of impersonal meditation in which an effort is made to withdraw the consciousness from all the numerous forms of manifested life as well as from one's own bodies, and B, to center consciousness on the formless and infinite aspect of God. In the initial phases, this form of impersonal meditation has to avail itself of some symbols of infinity. It is actually more helpful to start with some image which suggests and signifies infinity than the abstract idea of infinity. The mind may be made steady on the image of sky, ocean, or vast emptiness, but when once a particular image is chosen, the aspirant should stick to it throughout the period of meditation and not allow it to be replaced by another image. Out of these symbols of infinity, complete and unlimited emptiness is difficult to imagine. But it turns out to be the best symbol if one can successfully bring it before one's mind. Even when unlimited emptiness is used to signify infinity, in this form of meditation, the aspirant is not supposed to arrive at complete blankness of mind. Such blankness involves the cessation of all mental activity, and living and having absolutely no thoughts or ideas. But in this form of meditation, the mind tries to understand and realize the formless and infinite aspect of God by means of a significant symbol.
And this is a continuation of that.
Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
There is an important variety of this impersonal form of meditation. In the infinity which one imagines, the infinity which one imagines is not mentally externalized, as if it were an unlimited stretch of something outside the aspirant. It is more helpful to picture the infinite as within the aspirant. After picturing infinity within, the aspirant should give himself the strong suggestion of his identity with the infinite by mentally repeating, I am as infinite as the sky within, or I am as infinite as the ocean within, or I am as infinite as the emptiness within. It may even be more useful to use the bare formula, I am the infinite within, and while mentally repeating this formula, to grasp and realize the significance of infinity through the image which has been chosen. It is not necessary to repeat the formula in so many words. It is enough to cling to the thought expressed in the formula.
Okay, so that's the second of the meditations. And the third one is, let's see, where does it start? Okay, I think let's start. Okay, I think it's from here. Anyone feel like reading this up? Any readers?
Oh, yeah.
Can you make it big for her too, so that I can follow?
Yeah.
Testing.
Great thing.
Starting there, yeah.
The way is thus prepared for the meditation which attempts to make the mind blank, which is one of the most difficult things to achieve. The mind is without any ideas during sleep, but consciousness is then in abeyance. And during wakefulness, the mind has the idea of becoming blank. It is thinking about that idea and is far from being blank. But this difficult trick of making the mind blank becomes possible by an alternation between two incompatible forms of meditation, so that the mind is caught between concentration and distraction. Thus, the aspirant can concentrate on the master for 5 minutes, and then, as the mind is getting settled on the form of the master, he can steady his mind for the next 5 minutes, in which the impersonal meditation, in which the thought is, I am infinite. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The disparity between the two forms of meditation can be emphasized by keeping the eyes open during meditation on the form of the master and closing the eyes during impersonal meditation. Such alternation helps towards making the mind blank, but to be successful, both forms of meditation have to be seriously pursued. Though after 5 minutes there is to be a changeover to another type of meditation, there should be no thought of it while the first type is going on. There is no distraction unless there is concentration. But when a changeover is effected, there should be no thought of the first type of meditation. The distraction has to be as complete as the previous concentration. When there is a quick alternation between concentration and distraction, mental operations are, as it were, cut through by a saw which goes backward and forward. The disappearance of mental operation of all types contributes towards making the mind absolutely still, without allowing consciousness to fall into abeyance.
Okay, so that's the third. So, you start with the first of those. What do you want, a 1920s Meherabad or a 1950s Meherabad?
20.
20s, okay. We can't have a new life Meherabad because he would say, no, 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 no. Okay, we did 5 minutes last year. You want to go with that again?
Sure.
Okay, we have a timekeeper.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
We've got a 5-minute timer ready.
All right.
Meditate. Thumbs up.
That seemed to go by very fast.
Didn't seem like 5 hours.
Is that 5 minutes?
That was 5 minutes.
Seemed 5 hours.
Okay, yeah. Well, I want to call attention to what we'd all already be aware of, and that is this packet of, course materials that has been given to everyone. So there's there's a syllabus of the different, 2 syllabuses of the different sessions, and also a daily study guide. So I really do recommend before sessions to read through that day's entry on the daily study guide. It gives an idea of what the subject will be. And I'm going to run through it quickly here just to give a picture of what the total 9-day thing will be about. So the first section is on the preparation for the new life. That was yesterday. And we're going to flow through chronologically and sometimes be a little behind this or sometimes a little bit ahead. The point is to proceed chronologically through the night. So early adumbrations and the great seclusion. We'll actually get started on that today. And then the August 1929 meetings in preparation for the new life. August 15th to 31st is where the new life was first announced. And then the second section is the training period, sessions 3 to 5. So this would run from October 16th to December 31st, 1949. So the first is the training period at Bell Down. Right, this is down a good bit south from Ahmednagar. We looked at the map yesterday. There are maps in the book, of course. Then the Benares interlude for about 2 weeks or so, and this includes the episode at Sarnath also, which is very close to Benares, where they initiated the begging phase, and at Sarnath did the Langodi phase. And then wandering, the begging, Langodi, and Jutsi phases, 12th December through 12th January 1950. This is where they traveled from Benares up to Dehradun on foot and also by train. They carried all this materials and themselves on train for actually most of the distance. If they had done the whole thing on foot, it would have taken 9 months or something. Okay, Manjari, now this is the inauguration of the New Life proper in North India. 1st January 1950, Baba said, now the New Life begins in real earnest. And from January 12th, they were in Manjari Mafi, and Baba introduced 3 plans. So we'll go over those when we get to that session. Then Mayor Baba's work at the Kumbh Mela, that'll be March and April, where Baba was in Hardwar most of the time. He stayed in Motichur, a little village, but most of his work was done at Hardwar, which is, I should get Google Maps and get the exact distance, 40 miles, 50 miles from Dehradun, something like that. And then his 8th session, final months in North India, a new plan, the labor phase in the New Life ghee business. This was centered in Delhi, New Delhi. The ghee business was at the personal apartment of Kiki Desai. Then The next segment, New Life in South India, 9 through 11. So New Life shifts to Satara. Baba spent a lot of time in Satara over the years, but for a couple months that he was centered there, they rented some places. I forget, any of you been to Satara? Yeah, I did go there. It's Baba's accident, second accident was quite close to Satara, 7 or 8 miles outside the city. Then the 10th, the meeting at Mahabaleshwar and work with the musts and poor. This meeting was quite a big deal, October 16th, 1950. And the work with musts and poor went on for 3 months after that. That will be the 10th session. The 11th is the great 100-day seclusion and the move from Mahabaleshwar to Hyderabad. I wish we knew more about the seclusion, you know. Obviously, major work was done in it, but Baba didn't keep a diary of the universal work he did day by day. I don't know why he didn't, because I'd like to know about it. Anyway, then segment 5, Manonash, series 12 through 14. This is the culmination of the new life. First, a meeting at Hyderabad, June 1951. where he invited 75 of his followers for a several-day meeting at Hyderabad. If you go to Hyderabad, they know where the place was where they had the meeting. Then the inauguration of Manonash, and then that began on October 16th. The Baba seemed to observe dates. Maybe somebody could ponder on this and explain why. He seems to have used the calendar. So the 16th of October, each of these 3 years was a major day. He actually began it on that day in the cave at Hyderabad, and then traveled from there to Aurangabad and down to Meherabad. And then the 15th session will be on the free life. This is what, after the culmination of Manonash, and it ran, I haven't been able to find an indication of when the free life, the last part of it, the fire free life, ended. If anybody can find that, I never saw where Baba indicated it, but there are 3 parts: the complicated free life, the full free life, and the fiery free life. The fire free life began in November 1952. I personally am a complicated free life baby. I don't know about the rest of you. Probably a bunch of New Life babies here, huh? Are there some New Life babies? 1949 to 19...
Jad's a New Life baby, October 9th, 1951.
You're a New Life baby, Christy?
July 24th, 51.
Okay. So you're a preparation for Manonash baby. No other New Life babies here?
Oh, yeah.
You are? What's...
Yeah, November, so I was born the month he dictated the prayer of repentance.
I see. He saw you coming and said, anybody else here in New Life? Probably some Old Life babies are here. Anybody else a Free Life baby that is 52 to 53, February to... Baba may have repented about you, Chris, but in my case, he had the accident in Oklahoma. So that was 2 weeks after he had the disaster of me getting born, destined to be his lover. So this is a picture of the overall program that we're going to be covering. I also want to mention right here that one of the Avatar Meherabad Trust is on this ongoing program of coming out with editions of Baba's words and Baba's materials, critical editions that, critically edited texts. And one of the projects underway already is concerning the New Life. So I'd welcome any input from anybody about that. One of the volumes will be the New Life circulars. And it will have the circulars in their original text, and as a supplement, circular by circular, will have things like maps or identification of who the people are, or identification of which are Baba's words and all of this. Also, there'll be things like these booklets by Ramjoo, the Song of the New Life, various materials from diaries and stuff like that. It'll probably be several different volumes. So if any of you have any thoughts or inspirations as we proceed, project is in its early stages right now. I showed you some of this yesterday, but since I have it right here, here's one of the elements that will go into this is this diary by Ghani of the New Life, which has never been published yet. It's from October 16th to January 21st, 1950. Baba, that was his work, actually. He had the job. You can see, it's quite readable. Here's a list of the companions, stuff like that. Some of it's in Urdu, so I'll need some help with that. This is the primary source material. I mentioned yesterday, but another important primary source is, actually I'll show you the original here. Oops, there we go. See if I can, yeah, here it is. This is one of the original circulars. So they were printed up, these issued 23/1/1950. You know, in India, they go by day, month, year. So the 23rd of January 1950. And it was sent out from Adi's home. He actually went back home on the 21st of January. So he was the one sending these out. So this is what they look like. They're, nice, right? This is Nilu's. And actually, some of this is based on Ghani's diary, not the earlier part, but later. Here's the very first of the circulars. This was just typed like this. In fact, I'm going to read it. But this is where the world found out about the New Life. It was through this. Let all recipients of the New Phase booklet, well, they had seen the New Phase booklet, which we'll look at, but the first period of training will be spent at Belgaum till 20th November 1949, comprising physical labor. The second period of training will be spent at Benares from 25th November 49 to 10th December 49, comprising begging and langoti. The third and last period of training will be spent on the way to Hardwar, comprising gypsy life from 10th December 49 to 31st December 49. As it happened, I went on to the 12th of January 1950. And from 1st January onwards, whether on the way to Hardwar or wheresoever God takes us, will comprise the endless new life of hopelessness in real earnest.
So this was done ahead of time?
This was sent out before the New Life began.
I wasn't aware that it was planned for those times.
Yes, in early September, Baba began to chalk out rough dates. He didn't in the original meetings, but he did come up with this much. And actually, originally, the first phase was going to be spent in Aurangabad, but then Baba changed it to Belgaum down in the south. Yeah, so he did have broad plans that were there. That was consistently the case.
Or,
Yeah.
the New Life booklet, I don't think I've ever seen that. Do you know what was that? The New Life booklet.
Oh, is that the
New
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 phase?
Phase, I'm sorry, New Phase booklet.
Let me show you it right now. This is not the original, I haven't seen the original, but this was republished by, do you know Warren Healy? Any of you guys, have you heard of Warren Healy? I never met him. Did anyone meet Warren Healy? He was up in Seattle and he printed a lot of the booklets and pamphlets for about
The Awakener magazine until he died.
He printed The Awakener.
Yeah.
People always praise his printing. So this was reprinted by him. I don't have an original of this, but it was published in 1949. And this is the most important source on these meetings in Meherabad, 15th August to 31st August 1949, where Baba announced the new life. Before that, people really didn't know about it. I don't think even the phrase "the new life" had been given yet. So I think this is in your packet in some form or other. It's a major source. These things that Ramjoo composed, in the absence of discourses by Baba, are kind of the most authoritative sources of information we have on a lot of things. That's one, and here's another major source like that. It's The Great Seclusion. Again, Warren Healy did this, by Ramjoo and Dr. Deshmukh. And The Great Seclusion, do you know when was The Great Seclusion? Anyone recall?
The spring of 49.
Yeah, it was 21st of June through July 31st, 1949. And even then, they were calling it The Great Seclusion. Baba had done lots of seclusions already, but this one really stood out as a big one. It was at Meherabad, which we'll look at. And when Baba came out, he did not announce the new life, but he did say, big changes are coming, and the temple gown and Meherabad ashrams are going to be wiped off my map. So that was a shock. That was a really big shock. So this is the description of it. These things of Ramjoo's are really interesting. So he does give an account of seclusion, its significance. He talks about the different seclusions Baba had. He gives a review of the course of the Great Seclusion.
The title of that again?
The Great Seclusion.
By Ramjoo?
Ramjoo and Dr. Deshmukh. Yeah. You know, it turns out that Dr. Deshmukh would go to spend time with Baba during his Deshmukh's vacations. He was a professor of philosophy. And that year, he spent it at Meherabad because Baba was otherwise occupied. And Vishnu and Pendu gave him old Meherabad diaries, and it's from that we have Sparks of the Truth. Do you know that book, Sparks of the Truth? I bet you it's up in your library shelf somewhere. It's coming out in a new critical edition. But he had all these all-source materials, so that's what he was doing. So he and Ramjoo collaborated on this. So, okay. Then going back to the beginning, it actually, they say, this is from Balnatu's book, Glimpses. Right from the beginning of 1949, those close to Baba observed a real change in mood on his part. He was like really detaching from things and becoming more distant from all the activities. So here's how there was a circular sent out. I think we can. Okay, anyone would like to read this? I just have different voices doing this. Anybody?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. A special circular.
Special circular.
Mm.
To begin with, on New Year's Day, a special circular was sent to all the disciples and devotees of Meherabad. The gist of some of the points mentioned therein is given below. 1. Meherabad hinted at an impending personal disaster. 2. Meherabad's close disciples were to be in readiness to face real tests and trials. 3. All those who believed in Meherabad were asked to observe complete silence for the month of July 1949.
I remember Darwin talking about that. Any of you, did Phyllis ever talk about that? Keeping silence that month?
They did.
Yeah.
That's
That
it.
would be rather difficult if you had a job, I think.
It's in Darwin's book.
Also,
too.
Elizabeth talks about it.
Elizabeth Patterson? I would think in a way fasting would be easier because other people wouldn't notice if you're fasting. But if you're not talking, your boss might talk to you saying you're fired. I would think. Yeah.
4. From February 1st to the end of the year, the followers were not permitted to write letters to anyone, anywhere. However, for emergencies, telegrams were allowed. 5. The year 1949 will mark the artificial end to an artificial beginning, and the real beginning to the real end.
Now, what the heck does that mean? Actually, I mean, this is a real question.
Churchillian, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Artificial end to an artificial beginning. I guess that's the old life, huh?
Yeah, has to be right.
1922 to 1940. Why is that artificial? Anybody have any thoughts right off the bat?
Well, it's different than real, which is capitalized.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when it became to capitalize artificial.
I mean, from just, anything, divine thing, God speaks, whatever, infinite intelligence, rolling it into the real end
Yeah,
is a repeated pattern, obviously.
yeah.
But the artificial is, that's a good question. It's not real.
Yeah,
We know that.
apparently it's not.
But how is
I don't
it
know, maybe-
artificial?
Maybe the old life was artificial in the sense that Baba was being forced to live out old patterns of masterhood somehow. And now he was going to change all of that and
Do the real thing.
do the real
The
thing.
real thing was just to become an ordinary man.
Yeah,
And living.
yeah.
But was that in reference to him in particular? Or
Well, you
is
can
that
certainly
application to
the universe.
our development show?
Good question. Yeah.
What is the definition of artificial? I don't know if I'm looking on it. It always makes me think of artificial as something that humans figured out, not just innately artificial.
Yeah.
Does anyone have that definition?
Artificial. Artifice, art, created.
Well, to me, it's like the scaffolding. Everything is scaffolding, and you remove the scaffolding, and
Yeah,
the real begins.
yeah. So maybe so. It's
So
like a
artificial
scaffolding
can be innately artificial, that it's not something that humans create. Is that right?
Artifice is usually associated with human activity.
Yeah.
That certainly is the case. Yeah. This is one that's worth meditating on throughout this whole program because it seems a characterization of old life versus new life, or maybe cosmic change in the entire creation. There's your.
Maybe it has to do with the fact that in the old life, he's man and God. And in the new life that he's creating, he's just man.
He's just man.
He's trying to be man completely, and God, well, he's God, but somehow he's put that aside.
So here's the question. The real beginning to the real end. does that mean just the new life, or does it encompass the rest of his life, including life? See, he hadn't explained all of that yet, but the new life was going to merge into life later. Anyway, let's keep going. These are interesting quotes.
Although Baba is in everyone and in everything, the work of spiritual awakening remains aloof from politics of any kind.
Yeah. So this was throughout the new life, he would punctuate it. And it was a hard time to stay away from politics because they had just had Indian independence. There was all this volatility between Hindus and Muslims. And a lot of the places they went were, North India particularly, was quite tense with conflicts. And they weren't, to anticipate, they weren't allowed to read newspapers, actually. But at one point, I think they were going to Benares, if anyone corrects me if I'm getting this wrong, but then they heard that one of the murderers of Mahatma Gandhi was going to have a death sentence on that day. Am I right about that? And they realized that there could be real, communal violence happening, and that they ought to know about things like this. So they talked it over, and William Donkin was given the job of reading the newspapers and cutting out any articles that might have pertinence to them and show them to Baba. And then, after having done so, Duncan was ordered to completely forget about everything he had read. Just like that. Yeah. So this is one of these early adumbrations of things to come. Here's another one. Let's see, I hope I have the right page. Let's see where we are. Yeah, these are a bunch of statements. Ramjoo collected these in that booklet, one of those booklets of his. Do you have any readers? Anyone like to read this one?
Here, I'll read it.
Okay.
I do not feel like caring for anything as to what remains and what goes. An immediate reduction of 50% must be made on all expenses right now.
Now that's something they would have felt, because it's not like they were living luxuriously.
No.
So how the heck do you reduce your expenses 50%?
Right now, too.
Right now.
From July, you will see and hear things for yourself. 90% of the mandali will have to leave me, and only 10% will remain with me. In 1949, I have no trust left in anyone, including myself. All are pardoned by me, and God will pardon me, but henceforth no pardon is possible. You people have been with me for so many years, and I am therefore responsible for your continued weaknesses. But I do not want to take advantage of your weaknesses. I am therefore warning you not to succumb to these and to avoid everything being washed away during 1949.
So these are really sounded ominous, real warnings about what's going on, although nobody knew what was in the store yet. This is from Ramjoo, Abdulla. And in, I just want to mention a little bit in,
Were those just projections of mood, or were they prognostications of things to come? I mean, is there any work that reflects back upon those statements that were collected?
yeah. I think you're asking the question that a lot of Baba's Mandali were probably asking.
Yeah.
That very thing, is Baba just in a bad mood today? Or is trouble ahead? Well, in retrospect, it looks like they were prognostications, does it not? Because the new life fulfilled all of that and more. But I'm sure they were all saying, what is happening with Baba? And apparently in his mood, it was there too. You know, he was always most intensely present to all that was going on in the ashram. But I'm getting the impression he would be much more distant and much more disinterested and wanting to dissociate himself for it. That's the impression I get. And they were aware of that. Or at least in retrospect they were. Now here's in between March and June or so, Baba did this intense phase of work with musts. And part of it, he was in Mount Abu. I don't suppose any of you have been to Mount Abu, have you? I haven't either. It's in southern Rajasthan. And he did a lot of work with musts around there, but he also traveled quite a bit. And he did some work with this guy, Cha-Cha. Do you know Cha-Cha? Do you know what category he belongs to? Any of you?
Jalali must have.
Huh?
Was he, Jalali, no, he was sixth playing Jalali must.
He was beyond that.
Seven?
He was a Majoo. He was God realized all. And there are always some in the spiritual hierarchy. There's some Majoos who are there. And I don't know, when you look at him, he is conscious of God and completely unconscious of the universe. And he looks like that, doesn't he? He sure doesn't look like he's conscious of us. Yeah.
If this mosque work was transpiring during Baba's new life regimen, how is it possible that an ordinary man can appreciate the status of a mosque of any kind?
So we'll come to that when we get to that work. And Baba brought that up. He did say, this is not, my new life work with musts is nothing like the work that I did with musts before. It's completely different. He used to do some kind of secret work in the old life with these musts, but in the new life, he wasn't doing that. That's what he said. It is a real puzzle. So you see, here he is again. And he would drink vast quantities of tea. That's why he was called Cha-Cha. And I think at one point Baba was working with him and he kept giving it to Baba. And Baba got to the point where he couldn't drink any more of the tea. So Baba would take the cup and pour it into a bowl somewhere and come back and completely fool Cha-Cha. But Baba said that working with Cha-Cha was more valuable than working with 100 regular musts. So even though he was unconscious of the universe, apparently he was connected with it in a way that was hugely helpful. So I'm mentioning it because this was during this period before the new life. And another one Baba had connection with was Tilgur Swami is his name. Let me see. Is this the one? No. Okay. Yeah, we don't have photos of him, but this is the image that's on his tomb. He's down in the south, a bit west of Hyderabad, a little bit south. And before the new life in May 15th, Baba met with him. And he was a Jivan Mukta. And I mentioned yesterday, a Jivan Mukta is a God-realized soul who's creation conscious. Cha-Cha was not, but he's on the ninth state of God. And in the ninth state of God, you have infinite consciousness of creation, you're omniscient. but have no circle and no particular duty toward creation. There are always some of these in the spiritual hierarchy at all times too. And Baba met with him in May, but then Baba met with him again during the Manonash period. When they were traveling from Hyderabad up to Aurangabad, Baba stopped off and had a meeting with him. So that's part of this preparatory phase, this work at Mount Abu. And also, let me just show you some images of Mount Abu. Yeah, here we go.
Don't you have it on the screen now?
No, I don't know where that is. People ask me, I just ripped it off from the internet. That's Mount Abu. I think it's 5,000 or 6,000 feet high. I'll just scroll through a bunch of the photos. It has a major Jain temple and also Buddhist. It's like a beautiful.
Where is it geographically?
I don't have Google Maps open, but it's, you know, Rajasthan, way down in southern Rajasthan, going from Ahmednagar, I don't know, 600, 500 miles north or something. So it's on the western side of India, but it's quite far south. I don't think it's going to be in any of your maps in the Life book. Famous place.
We read about it last night, heard on the phone, and it said it was great, mythically created by Rama to protect his brother from the ravages of Ravana.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have to do that in southern Rajasthan? I would have recommended the south of India, because Ravana was in Sri Lanka.
Oh, no.
His sense of military strategy is not the same as mine. But it looks pretty, doesn't it? Yeah. Baba worked there several times. Yeah, this is probably, I don't know what it is, I can't read them. There's a bit major Jain temple, and I wonder if this isn't it. Yeah. So those are some images from that. So when Baba came back from there, actually he took a little vacation. And some of you may know that story of in Vengurla, where on the beach, I think it's a little south of Bombay, and Baba fell into the slough. You know that story? Any of you know it? Someone want to relate that story a little bit, right before the new life?
All I can remember was Eric saying when he was rescuing him how he felt, just so panicked, so worried, so concerned, just,
I didn't.
yeah, that
Wow. How did it happen? Do you recall that?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, they were, what is it, they were crossing the river or something in this boat, and these boys were
Yeah.
roughhousing, and the boat went over, and Baba never had learned how to swim, and sank way down. And they're just dived down and pulled him out,
Yeah.
and they had to wait on the shore for a while.
Yeah, it was like, I'm calling it a slough. I don't know.
It was a slough, yeah.
Do you call them that here in California?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like a tidal estuary type of thing. And Baba wanted just to go across that in a boat. He didn't want to have to walk around. And they are these, I think they're hollowed out logs is what it amounts to, what the boats were. They're very tippy. And one of the boys came and pulled on it, and so Baba fell in. And as you say, Baba couldn't swim. He never learned how to swim. So they were pulled him out of the thing.
Pulled him out of the muck at the bottom. I guess
It was
you know,
filthy.
covered
Yeah.
pile of mud.
There was probably, I don't know if it was sewage, but mud and every other kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Imagine the karma of the boy that was misbehaving.
Mm.
Maybe he'll have to come back and
Yeah.
Maybe Baba location for some reason we can't define, right?
I'm sure all kinds of work was being done there.
Could be here.
And so when they got up on the shore, Erich went back to the house to get a fresh set of clothes, and that was one of the very few times that Baba was left alone, as a matter of fact. And when he came back, and Baba changed into the clothes, and at the end of it, Baba said, you know, did anyone remember how Baba put it? But, you know, good, you pulled me out of the muck. It's good that you did that. And so Erich said, no. And Baba said, the time will come where I'll pull you out of the muck of disillusion. And Erich, to the end, was saying, I'm still waiting for that to happen. And I remember a time Erich had just told us this story. Might have been in the 70s. And, you know, Mara would come out on her porch, and then a lot of people would go over to hang out with her. Erich would say, go over, be with Mara. And we mentioned that Erich had just told us this story, and Mara was adamant it didn't happen. She said, yes, I remember we were there, and Baba's sadra was a little bit soiled at the bottom, and that was all. And I was just about to say, but Mara, Erich, and then I realized, shut up. And clearly, Baba hid it from her. You know, because she would have been
She would have been really upset.
really upset that Baba fell in and was drowning and all of that. That thought would have been so appalling to her. So that was a real, I had heard about that before, but that was kind of a shock. It's like, we just heard him tell the story. It wasn't the bottom of his sadra, it was his entire clothes. So I think regularly that would happen when Baba went on musk tours. He would stop off at the Jesawalas in Pune, and they would wash his clothes so that Mara wouldn't find out what was going on. So now coming to the great seclusion, I'd like to, we could read, this is from Stay with God. Francis is giving kind of an interpretive version. Francis Brabazon, right? The author of Stay with God, of what these seclusions were about. Let's see. And I think it's a very beautiful and very interesting account. Okay, this is later. That's really mean. Okay, and here it is. Okay, how much of this will we read? Let's read a page or so. It's I think, a very beautiful and very moving and profound account of the significance of Baba's seclusion work. He's using sun and moon as fundamental symbols in Stay with God. Anyone would like to read some of this? A couple stanzas, and we can swap off for a little bit.
Here, I'll start.
Great. Yeah. Sunday and moon month.
Sunday and moon month time our master, and the master's slave had now crept in decrepitude. At his blessed feet, honoring him for 28 years, since the establishment of his perfection, and the avatar of God had begun to draw to him his disciples, calling on them in their hearts, where he eternally dwells, to awaken, for now was the time again for service.
So what he's saying is 28 years have passed since Baba separated from Upasni Maharaj and had started doing his work, and we're in 1949 now. That's what he means.
moon, night, and sun, day, sleep time and waking seclusion of our unconsciousness and coming forth again in loves and hopes. But the saints reverse this. Day is separation and night the time of love.
Do you get what he's talking about here? For us, night, we're asleep and removed from the world, and day we come forth to loves and hopes, our regular life. But for saints, night is the time where they can be removed from the world and can experience the agonies and the joys of love.
The tears of the day are the pearls of men's dreams.
Isn't that a beautiful line? The tears of the day are the pearls of men's dreams.
The sighs of the night is the saint's road to God. And God too has a night and a day. Night of beyond the beyond. A day of creation and sustaining and destroying what he creates.
Anyone want to unpack this a little bit? God's night and God's day. Do you follow it? Yeah.
In Alora, there's a bas-relief sculpture of Rama sleeping on a bed of serpents. Is it
Vishnu, yeah.
Yeah, I always get them confused. But when that
That would be
passage
this.
was read, that's the image that came to mind.
When Vishnu, or let's say God, is asleep, the creation doesn't exist. That's God's night. And God's day is when he creates, preserves, and destroys this universe, which we're all experiencing right now.
So would that imply cycles? I mean, when there is the
That would follow from, that would be part of the Hindu vision. Want to keep going for another stanza? Sure. By the way, Shiva is, the destroyer, but Francis uses him as creator, preserver, destroyer. And Kailash is Mount Kailash. This is a big symbol in the state of God.
On Kailas, Siva endlessly enjoys his existence, knowledge, bliss. At
Chidambaram.
Chidambaram, he dances the world into being and gloriously sustains it. And in the burning grounds fired by ugly
Hephaestus.
he
Greek god
destroys it.
Smith, blacksmith.
The act of creation presumes the preservation of what is created. Handle thy fragile pot carefully, O potter, and do not spill ink on your precious poem, poet. The act of preserving assumes destruction. God alone knows what I am trying to say. Read God Speaks.
On it. And by the way, God Speaks had just been published when he wrote this. It's a quick study. Okay, anybody else feel like reading smart? We're going to get to the great seclusion here. Kristen.
I'll continue.
Keep going.
Where do
Yeah.
I continue here? I lost my place.
Yeah.
Up on top.
Yep.
God alone knows what any of us are trying to say. His dance has brought confusion upon us. We are intoxicated by the movement of it. Would that we were drunk by his beauty. Then would our hearts be
Chidambaram.
Shirambaram.
That's a famous temple in South India with a lot of statues of Shiva.
Be Shirambaram, and the burning ground of our desires. Siva Baba, Siva Baba, we have caught a ray of your eyes' light. Send fire to burn out the deep stump of our life's tree.
The
Dead stump.
Dead
Dead
stump.
stump. Or-
Have any of you ever tried to burn out a dead stump?
Yeah.
It takes days,
Yeah.
days,
Long
yeah.
time.
If we are not willing to be consumed by your love, how can we lay down our lives for you? We are trapped in a 9-gated house surrounded by bushfires.
This is a reference to one of the Puranas, where the 9-gated city is a symbol for the physical body.
It's the body, right?
Yeah, it's the body.
Across the valley, on the shore of the lake, is the city of spirit, crowned by my Father's mansion, towering in grandeur. Beyond is Kalias itself, where my ineffable Lord Baba has his home.
So these are symbols he's developed already, but I'm in my physical body, and there's the path to God, the city of God, the plains, and Mount Kailash is the transcendence of God up to the seventh plane. So this is a scene he's giving as a symbol from gross consciousness all the way up to God's transcendence.
Yet, he wandereth the city streets, peering in every doorway, looking for me. Nay, full look. He subdueth the fires on the hillside around my wretched shack. With the water of his tears, he quenches a pathway for my feet.
Do you get the story he's telling here?
Kind of a recapitulation of Dante.
Yeah, which is my life within this 9-gated house in the city of ordinary people, ordinary gross consciousness, and the fires are burning everywhere. But my Lord Shiva is up on top of Kailash, but he's not there. What is he doing, the Lord?
He's wandering city streets.
Yeah. He's come down from
He's
here.
looking for us.
Yeah, and in fact, these are the fires of desire, hope, and help, right? Hopelessness and helplessness. You know, our cravings, that's what the fires are. What is he doing with the fires?
Burning out the stump, the remainder.
Burning spirit.
No, it's quenching the fires around him.
With what?
His tears.
His tears. So this is the compassion of the Lord Shiva, means Baba, Shiva Baba. He's putting out all those, he's come down from Mount Kailash, which you can see across the lake, above the city of love. He's come down from there to my miserable city in my wretched shack. Well, that's this wretched, existence we've created for ourselves. And he's putting out all those fires. He's searching for me. It's a very moving, I find it to be very touching, actually. And now look at where he's, unfortunately, we haven't read Stay with God here, but one of the symbols is that when the Ganges River was a river up in heaven, but it had to be brought down to earth. And so, for various reasons, there's a whole mythology about this. But it falling down, it would destroy the earth in its impact. So Shiva took it upon his own dreadlocks and broke its fall. So that's what this is going to be alluding to, if you can see the symbols he's using. Keep going.
Okay. Most copious are his tears, the tears of each one who weeps. Ganja herself, falling from heaven and coursing down his cheeks, and filling the 5 oceans.
So what is the figure here? Do you see it? It's the reference to this myth where Shiva is breaking the fall. But why is it coursing down his cheeks? It's an allusion to this, is it not? It's like the Ganges falling and purifying the earth is his tears of compassion for the suffering of the world. See how Francis has brought these symbols together. I think it's very beautiful. I've never seen anything quite like this. A man of sorrows, you know that phrase?
That's the handle, right, from the Messiah.
From the Messiah, a man
Very
acquainted with grief, yeah. So this is very Christian all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
And what are the 5 oceans? Just to
Well, they're traditionally said to be 5 oceans. Other than that, is there a further reference that I can't see anything beyond just
Let's see, Arctic, Pacific, Atlantic,
Indian.
Indian.
And Antarctica.
And where?
Southern Ocean as well.
And which
The
was that?
Southern Ocean, around Antarctica.
Yeah. I had always heard there are 5 oceans, so I guess those are the
And 7 seas.
7 seas. Anyway, that's something that could use some further. Maybe, is there anything in the spirit 5 perfect masters for the ocean? I don't know. Anyway,
A man of sorrows. It is his sigh that fills the red flute of each heart, causing the sweet music of lips and the eyes and children dancing. Krishna, Jesus, Bhava. Where your feet have trod on this earth and the flames through heaven. Plant thou feet and bring me home, but do not before your work is done.
so all this is a transition from the earlier parts of Baba's life that he's been telling until now. But now he's going to get to the movement to the new life.
Moon night and sun day, and the night and the day has God as avatar.
So we earlier had a night and a day, God as God. But now it's going to be God as the avatar.
Night of light and bliss in withdrawal, day of descent in which nights and days alternate in seclusion and activity.
So what are these two for the avatar? Night of bliss, light and bliss and withdrawal. Well, when Baba goes to sleep, what happens?
Mahapralaya.
Huh?
Mahapralaya.
Well, in the cosmic cycle of things, it's that. But in an ordinary night, he goes back into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So that would be this. Bliss and withdrawal. He gets to withdraw from creation and merge in his original self. And his day would be descending to his life as avatar, which has both days and nights in it. Okay, so he's reinterpreting day and night in terms of what the avatar does.
Baba's first seclusion was for 9 months after Babajan had unveiled him.
And by the way, in that pamphlet, The Great Seclusion we looked at, Ramjoo goes over some of these seclusions earlier in Baba's life and talks about this. I'm sure that's a part of where Francis is getting some of this from. And he begins with that one, the 9 months where he was unconscious of everything.
The world was not, only he was, as in his beyond beyond. But, in fact, he had slept, but now he was awake. He was awake, but he worked not, because there was nowhere in which to work.
So this is the same as that night of light and bliss and withdrawal. He's merged in his real self. He is awake and conscious. So it's not the beyond state where he's unconscious. He's conscious, but the world isn't there and there's nowhere to work in. That was the withdrawal state. So he's going to link this with seclusions now.
So is he in just the beyond state?
Yeah.
After Maharaj had brought him down and told him, "You are the avatar," he secluded himself again. This first work of calling his disciples. Renewing, calling his disciples. renewing their loves for him, fitting them for the field of the world.
Now, Francis has just spent 20 pages going over this earlier part about his life. We're jumping in the middle of this whole section. He's just reminding us what he's just talked about.
For the next 28 years, he alternated work in seclusion and work in action. Seclusion at Meherabad, Andrea's Hill, from which he emerged gone and haggard, and told a disciple that 3/4 of the world would be destroyed, and many other places.
That was Adi, by the way. Chris, do you remember Adi talking about that?
Yeah.
So now this is interpreting seclusion. Now we get to the great seclusion.
Baba now entered his great seclusion of 40 days, curtain between two acts of old life and new life, curtain of author-actor, writing into the original sketch plan the detailed parts of the next act.
So how is he interpreting the great seclusion then? I wonder. Unpack this a little bit. He has to withdraw into himself, pull back from the world into that withdrawal state, the night, so to speak. And how is this a curtain? Well, on a literal level, what is the curtain in a play?
It's just it's a scene of the play.
Yeah. One act ends, the curtain comes down, and then after intermission, the curtain rises and the new act begins. So he's interpreting the great seclusion as that.
Between the acts.
Between the acts, yeah.
He's writing into the original sketch plan the detailed parts of the next act.
So what was he doing in the great seclusion, according to Francis?
Writing the play for the next,
Yeah.
the plan for the next act.
Probably the new life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it seems like a reasonable way of understanding what the great seclusion was, even though Baba never said, but it's a poetic interpretation.
The 40 days divided into 9 days, during which 21 poor and 7 men were brought in to him. 9 days during which the work to be done was done, fasting all the time.
This is from July 1st to July 9th.
No one knows except myself and God what I went through during those 9 days. 6 days of partial relaxation and some solid food taken. Shift of residence in closed car to Pune for 9 days and work with Musk, his men scouring the roads, bringing them to him. And back to Meherabad for final 7 days. The old life act is finished and established in potentiality of being in the hearts of the audience. The supreme actor, God himself, Lord Baba, stepped lightly and radiantly onto the stage of the next act of utter helplessness and hopelessness.
So right at the end of the great seclusion, Baba didn't use the phrase new life yet, but he indicated everything is going to change now. So let's do one more.
Okay. The great seclusion was from the 22nd June to the 31st of July 49. On August 15th, Baba called the disciples together and told them of the new life. He was beginning on October 16th, a life of homeless helplessness on the roads, and invited whoso consider it carefully, there would be no return, and he himself helpless to help them. For now, he who had been greatest would become least. He who had the highest of the high would be the lowest of all.
And then the next couple stanzas, he gives this brief account of the new life. When I went back to State of God a few years ago, I realized how skillfully Francis did this, because he describes the new life almost entirely as Baba set down the rules of it in the meetings in August 1949. Why? Well, Francis didn't know anything about the new life in those days. There wasn't any information about it hardly, except the circulars. But he fools you into thinking he's given an account of the new life. Now we know much more about the new life than he did in those days. So you see, he's giving, I think anyway, I think it's a beautiful, deep, poetic envisioning of what seclusion means. Looking at it at night and day, interpreted in these different perspectives. And the avataric work where he goes into seclusion, into the night, so to speak, as a place to envision and plan for his coming out again into the next phase. That's how Francis interprets the great seclusion there. All of this is taken right from Ramjoo's booklet. Would it be helpful to you guys for us to take a break in the middle of these sessions or not? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we take a 10-minute break and then we'll resume from here. Had a poetic, visionary, interpretive account of the great seclusion going into the new life, Francis Brabazon. I had this thought too. You may say, what does this have to do with the new life? Well, here's a thought, a speculation on the matter. This is the representation of God-realized Shivatma. It would apply to Perfect Master and also the Avatar. It's in the booklet, The Divine Theme, but the same thing appears in the 10 States of God chart. So this is a portrait of Meher Baba, a theoretical portrait of Meher Baba. So we have the gross body, the outer ring, the subtle body. So you know all of us have these one. Mental body, that's this ring here. Okay, we ordinary folk have this much, but now we get into what the 10th state of God individual has that we don't have. The universal body, that's our ring, the universal mind, the unlimited divine ego, and infinite consciousness. And all of those surround the self, or the soul, the self, let's say. So this is what the Perfect Masters in the Avatar has. So this is part of when I think, how could Baba how could he forget his God realization? Okay. Well, I imagine you have to be God realized to really know that, but to try intellectually to find an approach to it, I'm kind of thinking it's like he created a wall right around there, you know, in his consciousness, and blocked off the awareness of those things, and was just operating in these three rings: gross body, subtle body, mental body of an ordinary person. Yeah.
I want to know who was running the show while he was being in.
Maybe things just went crazy. No, it's a good question, yeah. Yeah.
There's something else that you said that interested me. Do you take the words soul and self as false synonyms?
Well, ultimately, they are, in the real sense, but in the sense that the soul is identical with the oversoul, or Paramatma, in that sense it's the real self. They do have some different connotations as English words, but self with a capital S
Right.
would be the same. not the false self, yeah.
My only beef with this chart is the size. I mean, I don't think my beef corresponds to this, to the avatars, this picture of the avatar, of Baba's consciousness.
Right.
But in general, the gross body is encompassed by the subtle, which is encompassed by the mental. So
Right.
it's like, I mean, this way you take, gross body is on the outside, subtle body is inside. And
Yeah,
inside.
yeah,
It's just maybe it's easier to think of when it's like that.
yeah.
But,
You know, it could be done the opposite way.
yeah,
Because the gross body is the smallest. Well, in Baba, in his charts, would often represent the same idea in a whole bunch of radically different ways. And at first, it irritated me. It's sort of like, well, I already understood this, and why are you doing it again? But these are conceptions, you know. And Baba is making the point, look, this is just a conception. It's the reality is beyond the conception. So what you're saying is quite true. There's no doubt about that.
it's just convenient.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, this is a thought. Does that register with you guys that Baba was blocking off as an avataric act his direct access to these parts of his avataric identity? He was not letting himself go there.
And yet, things would happen, like suddenly the right clothing would appear at the right time, at the right
Yeah,
place.
all of that was happening, yeah. So he would act as though he hadn't known about it. We did have an opinion in an earlier seminar where somebody said, I don't believe it, I think he really knew all this stuff. He knew he was God. I don't know, you could take that view, Chris?
Yeah, was that one
Microphone.
incident when Sari was there, and Bob was in the new life, and the snake came and crawled on and all that. And she saw Baba, an image of Baba there. So what was that? Was that Baba consciously doing that, or what?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Well, I mentioned yesterday that when Madhusudhan Party came to sing devotional songs of devotion to Meherabad, from Mahabaleshwar, Baba had them sing it to a photograph. And he said, I can't accept this. This isn't me right now. I mean, this is an unfathomable thing, obviously. But, although Jim understands it.
The
Yeah.
only other thing that's in a way similar is when the avatar takes form, he's brought down by the five perfect masters. When he's a boy, he's veiled.
That's right. Under
So,
the
and that's the case where he's not,
And in keeping with that stationing on a particular plane, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
Well, the five perfect masters didn't, I mean, if there's always five perfect masters, they were obviously doing something.
So maybe in answer to Melinda's question, the five perfect masters have to take over. Because the avatar dropped the steering wheel.
And karma just happens, right? I mean, so maybe.
It just plays out by itself.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we say, we say karma happens.
Interesting, was Baba all of God, or he talked about appealing to God? So he spoke as if God was something external to himself.
Yeah,
And so,
in the new life.
well, I think
He didn't do that so much before that,
at all.
or after.
Well, some of the prayers are.
It'd be good to collect his prayers before the new life. He generally would refer to himself as God, and didn't allow. It would be good to go through all those
So
earlier.
maybe I haven't been distinguishing the hearing and just pronouncing his name.
Yeah. I know it was a bit shocking to them that he would pray to God, we'll see in the new phase thing where he prayed to God for help. It says they had never in all the years heard Baba pray to God for help.
There's the answer.
And that they were so shocked they didn't even say amen. That's what it said, what Ramjoo says in his account of that. So it was something different. But here's another characteristic of maybe I mentioned this yesterday, that Baba is, he's prays to God a lot. And it seems to be to God absolute. It's not to any kind of mediating 10th state of God personality. He's not praying to old life avatar Meherabad, banish the thought. And he's not praying to Hazrat Maharaj either, or to Hazrat Babajan, or to Khizr, or to any individualized form of God. It's to God absolute. Always. I can't think of one exception to that. So, in the new life then and now, just a question, I don't have an answer to it. Does that mean that if we're trying to live the new life, we're relating to God absolute? Or are we allowed to relate ourselves to Meher Baba? Just a question. You know. He didn't have a master. Can we? I'll just float that one out there. There are a lot of questions that it brings up. Okay, so here's what Baba looked like. This is the Great Seclusion. See the blue bus? So they put this tata, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
All around it, and so this is on June 21st, 1949, where Baba invited a bunch of his old life followers to come as he inaugurated it. And the blue bus, by the way, had been auctioned off after the blue bus tours. And the person who bought it, I forget for how much, 1,000 rupees maybe, wound up giving it back. And it was given then to Sarosh at Sarosh Motor Works. And he was using it for some purpose. But then when this happened, he gave it back, and Padre put it on these metal drums. Anybody, Chris, do you know what they're standing on?
55-gallon oil drums, the oil drums.
Yeah.
They were apparently filled with sand or concrete
Yes.
to make them stable.
So Padre did that in preparation for this.
I actually, Paulo was worried that maybe they might be rusting or corroding. So I brought to India a little one of those digital things. There's a little tiny camera on a wire. You can use it.
By the way, use the microphone.
Oh, okay. Use the microphone.
It's nice to be able to say it to Chris for once.
Here I am. Okay.
There we are.
So I drilled a little hole in the little brickwork that's behind, and I stuck this little wire with the camera on the end inside to look at the underneath the bus, and I could see the 4 drums, and they were in perfectly good shape.
Okay.
But they're 4 oil drums.
Yeah. So Padre did that, as we read here. And so ever since then, the blue bus has been in this position on those drums. So Baba did the seclusion there, and in preparation for it, look at this. Baba began by saying, this is the people called to this opening event. I have called you here to take part in the purification ceremony, to cleanse the atmosphere of malevolent spirits and evil influences. So I guess Meherabad was just full of those, right? And then this is where something we're going to see over and over and over again throughout the new life. He then gestured for passages from the scriptures of various religions to be read aloud. And at various times when we have a moment, I'd kind of like to read some of the little passages out to get a sense of the flavor of what was going on. Kalamama, one of the old Mandalay Meherabad, read Lord Krishna's discourse from the Bhagavad Gita, the yoga of the kingly science and the kingly secret. I did go online and downloaded that. I have that one of these slideshows. I think Murli was his son. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right.
And Murli was one of the 20 companions. Khak Saheb from Pune, he was one of the old Muslim disciples of Baba from unzillion times, a very accomplished poet. So he Muslim, so he followed the recitation from the Quran of the first 20 ayat, those are verses, from the second surah entitled Baqarah. I downloaded that also. I would have thought of that as one of the most boring of all the...
What's the translation of Baqarah?
I don't remember. I probably have it somewhere.
Sorry.
Might be the cow. I think that one it's very, very long, and it's all about the rules and laws pertaining. But the Quran is organized from the longest to the shortest. And it so happens that the longest surahs were at the end of his life when he was in Medina. And a lot of them are giving laws for his community. And the shortest are the earliest when he was in Mecca, giving these apocalyptic predictions. So they're ordered more or less in inverse chronological order. So this is one of the late ones, actually. Why Baba would have picked that is, I'd like to be curious. We've got some Muslim scholars to focus on that. Baba remarked, the teachings of Muhammad and Krishna, the other was from the Bhagavad Gita, right? Were essentially the same, but were adapted to meet the needs of different times. And then Dr. Duncan, the only male Mandali from the West, who was, who else was there? Kitty and Rano. I think Elizabeth and Marina were there at the time. And I don't know who else. Read Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, another passage from the New Testament. After he read, sometime we could read this, I have this in my computer too. After he read the line, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Baba indicated that in this way, Jesus indirectly asserted that God realization is the goal of everyone, and that few people of Jesus' time are ready to hear such truth directly. Few people means like very, very, very few. And in Muhammad's time too, when Al-Halaj said it, they crucified him. When Duncan completed the Sermon on the Mount, Baba spelled out on the alphabet board, this is my favorite section in the Bible. You all know, blessed are the, very beautiful path from Matthew, Gospel of Matthew. Kaikabad, do you know what Kaikabad's leading activity was? Anybody?
Eating Baba's name 100,000 times a day.
That's right. And in the new life, he actually was brought on board, and he was never given any work to do beyond his usual work. I think he was repeating Ahura Mazda during the new life. He couldn't repeat Baba's name then. But he was there, he was in the picture throughout the whole new life, so he had a role. Another one in the new life who never had any work to do was died, well, some rare times, but he usually didn't have any work to do. He hadn't really had any work since 1927, and he was never given any work to do. He had a unique, he was one, in the early years, everyone regarded Ustadji as the closest of all the Mandali. So, lived in Upper Meherabad for many years, then recited Harmaj Yes. I looked for this last night and I couldn't find it. If anybody can find this, I have things from the Avesta, but I don't know.
Is that prayer? That must be a prayer.
Yeah,
a declaration of prayer.
I wonder, yeah. The oldest part of the most original parts of the Avesta are the gathas, these hymns that are attributed to Zoroaster himself. I wonder if this has to do with the gathas. I don't know. It'd be nice to find it. We could read these out too. Representing Zoroastrian faith. After the readings, Baba said, these are all different approaches to the same one truth, God. Therefore, the real purport of each book is just the same. These approaches can be broadly divided, this is very interesting, to two kinds, indirect and direct. That is, impersonal and personal. And in our meditations, we're doing these. We did personal this morning, and this afternoon we'll go to impersonal. In spite of such distinctions, equal results can be achieved and have been achieved through either of the ways. What can be understood in a flash by spiritual experiences takes ages to grasp intellectually. As regards my seclusion, I have 100% reasons of my own to retire from tomorrow for 40 days. This should not be looked upon as either top penance, top job, have you heard of tapas? This austerities, Hindu practice. And chilla narsi. I've always seen it as chilla nashini. Well, that's one kind of them. You know what the chilla nashini is?
Is that the circle?
Yeah.
Circle, yeah.
And how long do you go into the
40
circle?
days.
40 days
nights.
circle.
And they always say that you don't eat and you don't sleep. It sounds a bit extreme to me.
You haven't tried it?
I haven't tried it yet. 40 days without eating seems possible, but 40 days without sleeping doesn't. But anyway, Bob's dad tried to do it. Or meditation. I am free in every way, but I am going to get myself bound voluntarily. I will also intensify my silence and will not even let the least sound escape from my lips. And then right after this, Deshmukh, who was one of the co-author of the very pamphlet from which this is taken, performed a special kirtan, a narration including songs and poems on a divine theme. Do you know what kirtan is? Have you ever heard of kirtan? Huh?
Devotional dance.
There's, it alternates between singing and narration, and there might be dance movements too. It's a distinctive form. It's not just bhajans. Bhajans is just pure singing, but someone will tell a story from the Mahabharata or whatever it is, and then go into a song, and then sort of alternating. It's a very distinctive genre like that. So I guess Deshmukh could do it, apparently. The subject of the kirtan was the life of Shankaracharya, a perfect master during the 8th century in India. You guys are acquainted a little bit with Shankaracharya? Yeah. He's the great founder of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. He was, Baba actually said, I was Shankara, in fact. He may be a minor incarnation of the avatar. I read some places that suggest that. Often said to be India's greatest philosopher. So Deshmukh was a professor, a philosopher. And 2 weeks later, they had another session like this, and there was readings from Shankara's commentary on the, not the Bharata Ranyakasha, I forget, one of the Upanishads. So here we have all this kind of stuff and ceremonies. And Baba went into seclusion then for 40 days. And the most intensive part of it, let's see, let me find it here. Yeah, Kakabarya. Okay, here's a Kalamama from the reading from the Bhagavad Gita. I wonder what language he read in. Did it say? Anyway, Kakabarya was the only one who had any direct contact with Baba. And there are 3 others who are in the picture. Jal Kerawala and Merji and I think Naraman were there. Yeah. Probably at Meherabad they know all of this well. And Jal Kerawala kept a diary. One of the things about Ramjoo, which I, as a textual editor, strongly approve of is he always cites his sources. The source was Jal Karawalla's diary. That's what he wrote it from. But Kakavarya was run to distraction. He had so much to do. In the early days of it, there was a neem tree over the blue bus and it kept dropping its berries. And so that really distracted Baba. So Jal had to get up with a pole and knock all the berries off. And also there was this strange stuff. Any of you remember any of these stories from this? But some of them had night watch. And in the bathroom connected with this, and I don't know exactly where that would be. Do you, Chris?
Yeah.
Is that old one they used to use?
No, so the back of the bus goes up against that wall of the building.
Yeah.
Where the Meherana and Manonash stayed.
Yeah.
So there's a sliding door like there that would open right behind the bus.
Oh.
And that was their little kitchen, but it's only about 3 feet wide. And it goes from, there's a door there next to the door to go into Pindu's room, would have been Pindu's room then. That's always closed. And that whole hallway then goes into that room where they lived.
Oh.
So in a bathroom, you can't even call it that. It was just a little space.
Oh.
And he had a potty there.
I see. So Baba would hardly even step out of the
It
blue
was
bus.
just like one step out of the bus into this little one and then back in again.
Oh, I'm glad to know that.
He didn't walk anywhere else. It was just
I see.
right there.
So it's not like Baba was walking 25 yards to the other.
Not even 3 feet. And then someone would come from that outside door, I guess, and get the potty when he was back in and clean it.
I see.
Like that.
I see. I see.
So it was a commode than anything, not a toilet. It was-
I see. Oh, I'm glad to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick I don't know if this, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Just a quick retreat to the Baqarah. It does say the translation means the cow, and it referring to that book of the Quran, the
Okay.
longest book of the Quran.
Okay, the cow is what
Yeah,
that
the
means.
heifer or the cow,
Yeah.
that's the literal meaning of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I thought it meant that. I had a memory of that. Some of the night watchmen heard like this heavy breathing from the bathroom. And they went and looked and there was no one there. So there was this kind of supernatural stuff going on. Baba said it was, to purge of evil influences. Maybe there were ghosts or something like that. So there was some of this stuff going on. But then the really severe part of the Great Seclusion was July 1st to July 9th. And there are some strange, let's see. Yeah, little quotes from Baba. So Khaka wrote these down. Baba would dictate it to him. I think Khaka hardly saw Baba. Baba was really secluded. Okay, thoughts. The flow of my thoughts is going on during sleep and wakefulness throughout the 24 hours of the day and night. Thoughts of God come. Thoughts of Maya come. Good thoughts come. Bad thoughts come. Pleasant thoughts come. Unpleasant thoughts come. Sacred thoughts come. Unclean thoughts come. Thoughts about my men mandali and women mandali come. Thoughts about the world come. Thoughts about the entire universe come. But there is no fixed time for the work proper. It may be for half an hour, 1 hour, or 2 hours a day, and some days, none. Isn't that strange?
Where does this come from?
This is from The Great Seclusion, that pamphlet, a booklet, and those were taken from Jal Karawalla's notes. And he got these from Khaka. Khaka wrote it. I think Baba might have given this some Gujarati. Could be. So, please, someone could explain to me, there is no fixed time for the work proper. What is the work proper?
Hmm.
Apparently these thoughts coming is
Universal work.
No, I'm
No, it sounds like it must be. I suppose universal work was not off limits yet, because the new life hadn't
Well,
started.
then the question is what universal work?
Right.
Which is-
I don't know.
I've never seen a description of what the universal work was, and I've always assumed that was because I wouldn't have been able to understand it anyway.
I think that you'd say that you wouldn't understand it, but everybody else does.
Like that.
It must be some kind of universal, yeah.
Well, that next sentence there really
Yeah,
puts my imagination going in the direction of Baba preparing his mandali for how he wanted them to be,
yeah,
cleaning up their minds or whatever, for being useful for the next phase, and the world's thought currents, how to plan out what the next thing is. But that's just my imagination, but that's what comes to me.
that's a good perception. Do you want to read it out for us now that we should have read it beforehand?
In a very concentrated way, it seemed that Baba was preoccupied with the diverse thought currents coming to him from the world in general and from his followers in particular.
It does seem like this is particularly connected with thoughts, does it not? Unless which would be fifth plane. Maybe he was doing fifth plane work. What do you think, Brian? Can we narrow it down to fifth plane?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
But then, yeah.
question?
Oh, yeah.
So does this seem to be that thoughts are coming in that are the mandali's thoughts, or he's thinking of the mandali?
I don't know.
Sounds like thoughts
From
from
the world in general.
Yeah.
It says coming to him from
the world in general, and
Yeah.
followers in particular.
Yeah.
But that phrase, it seemed that Baba, so was that person's interpretation, or did Baba indicate it in some way?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's look at this next. It says, the next day, in a message taken down by Khaka, Baba complained of tremendous burning. I eat nothing, thoughts continue running. It seems like this had a lot to do with thoughts, that aspect of mind. At least that's what he mentions. He doesn't say feelings. You know, the fifth plane is the plane of thoughts, and the sixth plane is the plane of feelings, right? So, unless there was feelings too, and he just didn't mention it, and what he wrote down in Khaka could be. I have my sittings in the cabin, so it sounds like there were non-sitting times in the cabin also. Were sittings where he did the real work, and he was just goofing off the rest of the time. And at night too, I'm tossing on the bed, and although the cabin hits me in the head every day, what is that about?
Well, my cabin is having secrets.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, because that's the thing that's low enough.
So does it mean that he would stand up and hit his head, or is he using it metaphorically?
He talks about it quite a bit, the low ceiling.
Yeah.
Well,
He's physically hitting it.
from the rest of the sentence, it would be literal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you go through the door that you get.
Right. Today, the part above the door hit me so hard that I began to feel giddy. So, sounds like he was literally banging his head, doesn't it?
Well, no, he might have just been trying to go to the toilet and
Hit his head.
hit his head.
Yeah.
I hit my head when I tried to come up.
And now here he says, little comment, about an hour later, Baba told Khaka to add. So Khaka was writing this. Baba was spelling this out and Khaka was writing it down. Do not give these knocks on the head against the low ceiling of the cabin any supernatural interpretation, as our dear old blessed Chanji, Baba's early secretary, would have done. Chanji had died a few years earlier, out of his deep, undying love for me. These hard knocks on the skull show how brave the real yogis must be who live in dark, low-roofed caves in remote wild jungles. So he gives a nice word to the yogis for once. He often criticize them. Yeah. At one point, Baba did receive a nasty bump when he hit his head against the corner of the overhead rack just inside the door of the blue bus. Later, the corner was padded with cotton cloth, which can still be seen today. You know where that is, Chris?
Yeah.
Question on that. Is that cloth the same as when Baba was there, or has it been changed?
That's a good question, I don't know.
I don't imagine they would have removed it if they didn't have to.
Right.
And even if they removed it, they probably would have kept it somewhere, unless it happened in the 60s when they weren't so fussy about these things. That's a good question. Yeah. And let's see. On one occasion, Baba composed several couplets in Gujarati. I wish we had the Gujarati, I hope it's somewhere. I haven't been able to find it so far. Which conveyed to Kaka. One of the stanzas reads, people feel blessed. So it sounds like this was during this seclusion that Baba composed this, but maybe it was later, I don't know. People feel blessed to have a dip in the holy Ganges, but the Ganges itself is sanctified by bathing in the tears. I think there's something, shed by the lovers of God who love Him for the sake of love. Such lovers become objects of meditation, even for God. Isn't that nice? I wish we had the Gujarati, though. It would be nice to know. And later, the fasting, this was during that 90-day period. Although infinite restlessness is my constant companion, I have never been so restless as from July 1st to 9th in my present seclusion. No one, except myself and God, knows what I went through during those 9 days. And it really does seem throughout the new life that these seclusions were what was hardest on Baba. There were other things he went through. I mentioned the Kumbh Mela where he died down to 10,000 sadhus and sannyasis, and his back was a wreck. But it really seems like these seclusions were what really devastated him. And so this was the really intense part of that period. July 11th through 13th, Nirji, Nariman, and Jal Kerawala were allowed to break their silence. And so I gather they were supposed to, I think everybody was supposed to keep silence over this whole month. And I think this was a problem for Kaka because he was tending on Baba, but he had to keep silence. So it was really, he was exhausted by the end of it. Allowed to break their silence temporarily to read aloud from various spiritual books. They sat and read by the door of the blue bus while Baba listened from inside out of view, so they couldn't look at him, right? I don't think anybody hardly saw Baba during this part of the Great Seclusion. For several hours they read passages from the book Friar Juniper. Do you know who Juniper is? Any of you? He was one of the disciples of St. Francis, and he was like a divine fool. He was always doing these crazy things. You would think that Francis had already secured that job for himself, but compared to Juniper, Francis was a model of sobriety. There are very funny stories of him. But Baba said actually Juniper loved Francis the most. So there are all these stories. The Little Flowers of St. Francis. Any of you ever read this? The Little Flowers of St. Francis? It's worth reading. It's a lovely book. It's 80 pages or something. The Classics of the Inner Life and The Cloud of Unknowing. So this is all European. The Cloud of Unknowing is a 14th century book, very, very mystical in English, written in Middle English. I think Duncan selected all these things. He wasn't at Meherabad, but the following day, I'm mentioning this because we're going to keep running across throughout the new life these phases where Baba has readings done from classics. Mirji read from the Dasatir, a holy book. Do you know what the Dasatir is, any of you? This is a book that's attributed to Azar Kaivan, is his name. He was a 16th, 17th century Zoroastrian. Baba said he was the last Zoroastrian perfect master, and he migrated from Iran to India, Bihar, during the reign of Akbar, the great king Akbar. And this is a work attributed to him. And Baba treated it like one of the scriptures, a holy book on the causes of suffering, on the need to compassion toward all. Jal Karawala read from Shankara's Charya's commentaries on the Briha Dharanyaka. This is, I haven't read this one, the Briha Dharanyaka Upanishad. It's one of the classic Upanishads. These are some of the greatest works of all Indian philosophy, Shankara's commentaries. They're major works of philosophy. The final reading was from Baba's own discourse entitled The Divine Theme of Creation. Any of you know what this is by any chance? I bet if you looked hard enough you might find a copy up there in the library. It's 1943. I showed you a chart from it earlier. It's from that, where Baba had a seclusion in Meherabad, not a seclusion, a sadhana at Meherabad, and gave a whole presentation on the divine theme, the journey of the soul. That it was a published book. It has these big fold-out charts there. So, okay, next Baba went to Pune for about 2 weeks, and then came back and finished up his seclusion. I'm just skipping the rest of it. But when he came out, there are all these interesting things, but we can't read everything. Baba had another gathering. Actually, these are photos from the time. Baba, he did work with Ali Shah. I'm not sure if this was from that very time or not. This is probably the meeting right before then. But he had a gathering of his lovers, and Baba had this prayer read out. Do we have a reader? Would anyone like to read this out?
Tested. May God, whom the Muslims call Allah, whom the Zoroastrians call Ahura Mazda, whom the Hindus call Ishwar Paramatma, and whom many others call by many other names, may he whose union lovers seek in self-annihilation, whom the seers see as the only reality, and whom the knowers know as their own real self, may this supreme conscious being, this conscious soul of souls, who eternally manifests as avatar and perfect masters, may he, through his all-merciful act, bestow on us his grace. And may he solve our difficulties by the end of this year, and may he decide everything for us by the end of this year. And may he, according to Baba's circular of 1949, finish everything by the end of this year, to enable Baba to break his silence in the beginning of next year, to speak the one and the last word of all embracing divinity. Meher Baba.
This is the last reference that I can think of to the word and silence breaking during the whole new life. Seems like that theme dropped out of it. But it seems characteristic of most of these prayers that we have in the new life. First of all, that Baba is praying to God Almighty. Again, just to pull this up here. This is not God personified, this is Almighty God. God, Allah, Ahura Mazda, Paramatma, right? These are all transcendent, God beyond, the second state of God, you could say. And, but the other thing is that in most of his prayers, Baba is asking God to fulfill his plans, Baba's plans. And he even gives God deadlines. That consistently
We
comes
solve
up.
our difficulties by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's right. That regularly comes up. And in fact, God is supposed to have read Baba's circular of 1949. I hope that Baba sent him a copy. That's, I'm not entirely sure which circular that would be. It could be that one I read stuff from earlier on. So, God is supposed to help Baba break his silence by the beginning of the next year. This will come up again and again and again. Baba is very consistently asking God for something, and it's not a personal request, it's to fulfill his plans and intentions regarding the new life. So, anyway, that's there. Well, let's see, it's noon right now, so maybe we should break, and we'll resume with the August meetings, and we can kind of catch up a little bit. I mean, these early things we have to spend time on. So any last comments before we break? Anyone want? Yeah.
Just one, I'm just curious about all the changing plans that occurred during the new life. So as we go through the course, just any insights beyond, what we see in the text and everything. I'm really curious about those, and any thoughts that you might have had about that changing plan.
Call attention to them as you notice them. Yeah. And look, you guys, your perspectives are as good as mine. The new life is very mystifying in so many ways. So this afternoon we're going to get into those August meetings where Baba for the first time explained what the new life was. Yeah, let me say this is the last thing. Before they left, later on after this, Baba gave these indications that he, in fact, maybe I can quickly find it. Yeah, that he said, okay, they had a nice, he said, the work I have done here at Meherabad I have not done in any part of the globe. And Vani had a skit. She was really talented at those. Where is it, if I can find the statement? Sorry, Okay, anyway, Baba said, Meherabad and the Pimplegaon ashrams are going to be wiped off my map. And so, they had been living there for 30 years. And so it was like a shock. I'm sure everybody was, a lot of people saying, is Baba really going to do this? Or is he just sort of getting us all riled up and excited and everything? But he did it. 2 weeks later, he did it. Yeah.
That's one of them. Where he said that so definitively that, and then, of course, it didn't happen that way. And,
Well, it did in the sense that he sold off the property and broke connections with his old life followers. He certainly did that. Yeah.
right, he did that, but then post New Life,
He came back.
Meherabad and Meherabad are still the central
That's true.
section. So that's really what, because he made it seem like, well, they're
Gone forever.
Yeah, they're done. We're finished with that. We're going to move on to something else.
Yeah, that is a question. Baba said all these very drastic things. But then a lot of what he apparently did away with did come back. So did Baba not fulfill his word? Or can we take it that the New Life did absolutely annihilate these things and somehow they reemerged in life later on?
Well,
these are all,
He set it up so that it could come back. I mean,
yeah.
the people took over, the deeds were put in their names, et cetera, et cetera.
Sarosh,
But
Meherana.
he sort of set the whole thing up to swing back around the other
Yeah.
way.
He did get rid of the properties. Sarosh,
To friendly people.
to friendly disciples, they all
Yeah,
came
that's
forward.
great, the friendly-
They came forward at these meetings. Sarosh bought, I think they bought Upper Meherabad, although Baba did keep the crypt cabin, which is now a samadhi, he kept that in his own name. Lower Meherabad was Meherji and Nariman bought Meherazad, and actually continued to own it, and then Arnavas after his death until 1994 or so. It was actually in her name. So it came into the possession of close disciples. And Baba told them, you can sell it off if you want. And I think Nariman said, well, if there's a question of selling it off, we would never have taken it in the first place. And Baba said, that's your business. You can do whatever you want, but you're free to sell it. So I hear that the Meher Center was also in his name. Has anybody else heard that? I think when I get to the center, I'll have to ask them.
Was also in his name.
In Baba's name.
Did Elizabeth put it in Bob's name?
That's what I hear. I have to ask about it when I get there. But it didn't seem to have come up in any
Because it was owned by Elizabeth's father, right? And then
Maybe he gave it to her, yeah. But I have the impression it was actually literally in Baba's own name. I don't know if American law allowed foreign nationals to own property or not.
seems now.
No, I mean, we've always allowed it.
We've always allowed it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've always allowed it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's what I hear. But anyway, it didn't come up in these meetings. Okay, so then, resuming at 2:30, we get into the August meetings, which were the greatest shock Baba's followers had ever experienced until that time. Okay, Jai Baba.
Yeah, thank you.